Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good afternoon, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the News 8 Live Desk. Hope you're having a great start to your Wednesday. The third installment in Matt Jarowski's digital series detailing the POW camps here in Michigan during World War II recently dropped this past Sunday, and now you can check out the first 3 parts, all available to you right now over on our website, woodtv.com. And Matt, we're here to talk about that third piece that just came out. It details a lot about, really focuses on one man named Ernst Floeter, one of the prisoners who stayed in one of those Michigan POW camps during World War II. And he has a very unique story to tell, and you did a really great job kind of explaining that. So kind of just getting straight into it, Matt, who was Ernst Floeter?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so as you mentioned, he was German. He fought for the German army in World War II, spent time in the POW camps here in the States, actually was in many of them, and cycled through Fort Custer, but just an extremely fascinating story. He, after the war, long story short, he moved back to the United States because he really enjoyed his time here and lived out the American dream for nearly 50 years, just passing away, I believe in 2015. So before he passed away, he did a lengthy sit-down interview with a historian from the Michigan State Archives and kind of told his entire story, and really allows us to take a firsthand account from start to finish, from when he was born and raised in Germany to joining the war effort, to being captured, to being a POW, to the war ending and him moving home, and then him starting his new life in the States, and just start to finish, a really interesting character. And I think that's what makes the best story anyways, when you have someone that you can connect with. So very cool. A lot of really fun parts of his personality come through, I think, in this piece.
No, absolutely. I mean, I had fun just watching it because, you know, in these first 2 stories that you did, they really detailed a lot more, just kind of the grandiose scale of these camps and, you know, why we maybe haven't heard about them so much, or part of our own history here in Michigan. This one, a very personal story on Floeter. And I found myself really captivated, just as you mentioned, seeing his personality really come through that interview, and then also just the story that kind of laid out. And one thing that I really enjoyed was how he kind of talked about the conditions of the camps, and really just how it was different from place to place that he went to, and then ultimately kind of resulting in him wanting to come back here to Michigan following the war.
Right, yeah. So we've kind of talked about it in some of the other pieces, the conditions, especially overseas, like when they were first captured, conditions were less than ideal. Obviously, there's a limited amount of resources there. And in his telling, Ernst really kind of provided a lot of key details about those first few days, and also spending time as a British captive, kind of as they were in the process of being transported over here to the United States. He tells a really interesting little nugget of, he was captured by Americans, was then that group was given over to some Brits to transport them across the ocean back to U.S. custody. And so he was grateful to be back in American custody. And when they're on a train, he wakes up one day and he doesn't realize that they're at Niagara Falls, but he sees the Canadian flag and the Union Jack flying, and he's, you know, oh no, I'm back in British control. Thankfully for him, that train just traveled through Canada up into Michigan, and that's kind of where that story continues. So a lot of really interesting nuggets that he kind of provide for me. He provides more detail. He provides depth to a story, a period of time that we know so much about, but it's the little stories of the people involved that kind of get lost in this grandiose act.
Right. No, and just being able, I mean, you even said it, kind of just not really realizing where he is. I mean, that is something that you probably wouldn't run into that issue nowadays, but definitely back in the 40s and 50s, you know, that's when you would have those situations. So it is kind of like taking a step back into a time machine sort of way, and I really enjoyed that part of it too. And I don't want to give too much away, Matt, because I do think everybody should go out and read this story. If you're going to read any of these parts, I wish, hopefully you're reading all of them as they come out, but this one is, as you mentioned, a really personal personal story regarding this entire topic. But without giving too much away, can you talk a little bit about his journey back following the war to get back to America? Because that is just, I think we hear about that all the time, just about how people, wanting to make that American dream, make that better life for themselves, coming over during the 50s following World War II. And this one in particular was really interesting to me. Yeah,
so to really explain his decision of wanting to move back to the States, you kind of just have to know more about who he is. Ernst was born in the 1920s in a town that at the time was part of Germany, but now is considered a part of Poland because everything was so in flux in that early part of the 20th century. The Nazi Party that really grew and expanded their reach leading up to World War II was so authoritative, and Ernst being in a position of he was a German who did not really support the Nazi Party. There are plenty of people that didn't, but he felt forced to join the war effort, which is the only reason why he fought in the war in the first place. Basically, he was going to get drafted, and according to how they broke things down at that time, based on when he was born, he would have joined the SS, the secret police that really were the primary driver of gathering up, feeding, what became the Holocaust, which he didn't want to be any part of. So he actually volunteered to get into the army and join the infantry to avoid being drafted into the SS. That's something he just absolutely didn't want to be a part of, kind of taking maybe the lesser of two evils there. And so he kind of shares that story of from all those steps through the war, becoming a POW, coming back home. The Germany that he grew up in really wasn't there anymore. Germany's split, Berlin is split. He gets married and actually moves from one side of Germany to the other and is considered a person in exile. And that's how he's actually able to come freely to the United States. Him and his wife and his small child end up making that move. And he said he wanted to be in one of two places, either Illinois or Michigan. He ended up being placed in Michigan, in East Lansing, ended up moving to Grand Ledge. And he lived there for decades. Kind of became like a local, one of those people that everyone knows who Ernst Floeter is. Everyone kind of knows his story, and there's a lot of details peppered in. You should go read it. That's kind of showcase who he is, what makes his story so special, and really how he came to love the United States for what it stands for and those freedoms and things that we would still talk about and fight for today of freedom of choice, or freedom to be different and to not hate and segregate against one another. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. I would definitely encourage people to go check it out. It's a little long. Ernst, just like me, can be a little long-winded, but some really cool stuff in there.
And it's definitely perfect timing as we are getting set for the 4th of July holiday. I think kind of re-emphasizing all the good in America is definitely something people are probably going to enjoy reading a little bit more about given this time of year. But Matt, obviously this is the third installment in this entire series. We've got two more coming up over the next couple of weeks. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you have planned for this coming Sunday?
Yeah, so the part 4 will kind of piggyback a little bit off of Ernst. It's really more just about providing context to this giant historical act. I basically bounce off the phrase of war is not black and white. Obviously, from what side of the war you're on, there's the good guys and the bad guys, when really most of that is a lot of gray area, which we see in Ernst's story. Yes, he was a German soldier, but he did not consider himself a Nazi. So like kind of wading into those different areas and really seeing through some of that stuff and seeing that there's still man to man, there was a lot of respect between the Allied and the Axis powers on the battlefield anyway. So there's a bunch of really great stuff coming in part 4 that'll come out this Sunday.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that one. But again, the first 3 parts of this series are available to everyone right now. All you have to do is head on over to our website, woodtv.com. You can check out the first 3 parts in this digital series and get ready for part 4 and part 5 as they come out over the next couple of weeks. Matt, thank you so much for stopping by today. We'll see you next week.
Anytime. Thanks, Phil.
Of course. I want to thank everybody else for tuning into this latest edition of the News 8 Live Desk. I'm Phil.